goes on in Vegas may not stay in Vegas tonight as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump face off in their final U.S. presidential debate. Donald Trump's allegations that if he loses, it's due to a rigged vote is met with sharp criticism from the U.S. Commander-in-Chief. And one woman's mission to help those displaced by Boko Haram militants in Nigeria. We'll have a report. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Well, Las Vegas bills itself as the entertainment capital of the world, and Wednesday night's high-wattage third and final U.S. presidential debate between Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton is likely to be one of the most talked about events ever held in the city. Now, since 2008, the state of Nevada has been ravaged by job losses and a housing crash, and its employment growth has the lowest in the nation in 2009. Now, the economy is recovering, and many residents are cautiously optimistic about who will be the next president. Elizabeth Lee has our report.
The backbone of the Las Vegas casinos is in this room, the Culinary Workers Union Local 226.
I clean the slots machines, I clean public restrooms in the casino or all over the casino and hotel floors. I pick up broken glass, wet spills.
Cynthia Salcido and these union members are making plans to make sure their voices are heard when all eyes are on Las Vegas for the last presidential debate.
It's a hard election, but I mean, I'm pretty excited with Hillary. Hopefully, if she wins, we will have our first female president.
Salcido has two daughters. One of them is named Hillary. She says as a single mom, it's sometimes hard making ends meet, but it could be worse. More tourists are coming back since the recession days when Las Vegas was hit hard, says public policy professor Robert Lang.
It was over-reliant on tourism. And when the sort of fun ended in the last decade and people stopped spending freely on consumerism, then the crash happened. And it happened deeper here. There was a big loss, especially in construction employment, that never really recovered.
But Lang says the tourism sector is booming again. This mall near the casinos is indicative of how small businesses, such as Flip Flop Workshop, are thriving. In less than a year, the Build Your Own Flip Flop store has grown to 2 locations in Las Vegas, and it's looking to hire more employees.
We have approximately 20 employees total, but we're growing, definitely in this mall especially. We've seen new businesses that are coming from all over the world and the United States.
This room is pretty big.
Nevada's housing market is also bouncing back.
Now we actually see those boomerang buyers who actually lost their homes able to come back, actually get approved for a mortgage, and again, get that American dream right back, which is home ownership. Let's go back down.
Marcella Hatat is now looking for a new house. She says the economy is a big issue for her when choosing a presidential candidate.
I don't really like either one of them, but ideally I want the one that's going to make and put emphasis on making this country and the economy to make it stable.
The economy is also one of the main issues that drives Luis Espinosa's choice for president.
I think Trump is the better choice. Personally, I think the greedier and the more money that the business owner wants, common sense tells me he's going to have to open up more businesses. When he opens up more businesses, he's going to employ more people.
Lang says about 10% of Nevada voters are still undecided or are voting for a third-party candidate. He says with a strong union effort to get Democrats to the polls, more people in the state may vote for Clinton on Election Day. But no one is making a real prediction because Lang says this election has been so unpredictable. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Las Vegas.
But President Barack Obama has sharply criticized Donald Trump for claiming that next month's election results will be rigged if he loses. Now, Mr. Obama also called Trump's praise for Russian President Vladimir Putin unprecedented. The remarks came Tuesday during a joint news conference with visiting Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi. Here's VOA's Zlatko Zahok.
President Obama said it is hard to understand why the traditionally anti-Russian Republicans are still endorsing Trump.
Mr. Trump's continued flattery of Mr. Putin and the degree to which he appears to model many of his policies and approaches to politics on Mr. Putin is unprecedented in American politics.
The president also said he had never seen or heard any presidential candidate try to discredit the election process before it even took place, as Trump has.
They even want to try and rig the election at the polling booths, where so many cities are corrupt and voter fraud is all too common.
Obama said the election process in the United States is too decentralized for any significant rigging, and that in many swing states, voting will be run and monitored by Republican officials.
You start whining before the game's even over? If whenever things are going badly for you and you lose, you start blaming somebody else, then you don't have what it takes to be in this job.
The Italian Prime Minister also took a subtle swipe at Trump, saying countries should build bridges, not walls.
We believe that it's fundamental, it's crucial, not to succumb to the culture of fear.
Renzi said Obama's presidency will leave a positive legacy in Europe as well as in America. He praised the United States for supporting economic growth instead of austerity to get out of the global financial crisis that began in 2008.
Your country has indicated, shown us the way, how to get out of the biggest crisis after the war. I believe that Europe can and should do more. Italy considers the U.S. as the reference point in this battle, but of course we also have to do our homework.
The Italian leader was greeted at the White House with pomp that could boost his status at home. After an official lunch on Tuesday, he also was treated to the last scheduled state dinner hosted by President Obama. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
When Americans vote for a new president in a few weeks, they will also be casting their ballots for city, state, and national representatives. A number of those candidates are immigrants whose backgrounds and circumstances are as diverse as the obstacles and barriers before them. Now, VOA's Midwest correspondent Ken Farabao has followed the campaigns of 4 Muslim American immigrants seeking office. Among them is Ilhan Omar, 33-year-old Somali American refugee and politician who's set to become the first Somali American Muslim woman to be elected to public office. Now, Ken, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, we're happy. And now tell us more about this lady's really history-making step.
Right. So Ilhan Omar is a Somali refugee who settled in a Kenyan refugee camp and eventually resettled in the United States. She's relatively young, and she is become a very prominent member of the community. She decided to seek office in a liberal district in Minnesota, which there are some Somali Americans that live in this district, but it is a diverse district. It's an extremely liberal district, and she was running against a woman who has held the office for 40 years, over 40 years. And so in this primary election, Ilhan Omar was running against 2 other candidates, notably. One of them was Mohammed Noor, who was another Somali American, and Phyllis Khan, the person who's held the seat for a long time. And in order to do that, she had to reach out to a lot of different kinds of voters, and in the end, she was successful.
This is impressive. Now, if she does win, she makes history on so many levels.
Right. So not only is this going to be significant for Muslim Americans, but also, too, as one of the professors that I talked to explains this, she had so much stacked against her. You know, the fact that she was a woman could have been an obstacle. The fact that she was an immigrant could have been an obstacle. The fact that she's Muslim American could have been an obstacle. All of these factors, which are a part of her identity, which she is not afraid to show and not afraid to talk about, in many other places in the country may have been a factor that would not have generated popular support for her. In her district and in her campaign, these weren't obstacles.
Yes. Now, for someone in Africa, they may say, oh, perhaps she's coming from a neighborhood that is perhaps predominantly Muslim or even Somali, but you've just said this is a place which has a mix of all types of people. Tell us, what is it you heard or she told you that made her resonate with the people of our district?
So think about this. She's Somali American who is a prominent member of the very large Somali American community in Minnesota, and she did not win the Somali American vote. As a matter of fact, that went to her challenger, Mohammed Noor. She won because she reached out to many white student voters that live in this district, other voters that live in this district. Her campaign wasn't about trying to win the Somali American diaspora vote. Her goal was to win the vote in general. And because she broadened the outreach to other kinds of voters, that's ultimately what led to her success.
Yes. Now, there's some who've looked at this election and said, well, there's a lot of pushback, especially against immigrants and Muslims specifically. What does that story tell people out there about the United States if you look way beyond the presidential campaigns and elections?
So there was a famous lawmaker who once said all politics is local. And these races that I followed in this program are extremely local. I mean, we're talking about city council, we're talking about state legislature, and we also are talking about a man who ran for Congress. And in these elections, these are people who want to represent this small but growing minority in the United States. They feel that they don't have enough of a voice in government, and so the way to change that is to seek office. And what they are trying to do is to not necessarily represent a certain faith or a certain demographic or a certain ethnic group. They want to represent all of the people, but they don't want these obstacles of their faith and their culture and religious identity to be in the way of them getting elected.
It's like a statement, saying, we are also Americans.
That's right. As a matter of fact, too, one of the men in the program says, I'm an American before I'm a Muslim.
Yeah, interesting. Just briefly, what has this experience taught you?
I have to say that for me, not only did I get to go out and meet people in communities that I might not have otherwise, had the ability to get into, I was able to sort of understand in almost every case, the religious faith of these candidates almost never came up in their campaigns. It either didn't matter to the voters that were going to the voters who were going to support them, or it just simply wasn't something that I think that another candidate could have capitalized on, because either that other candidate was also Muslim American, or it just wasn't going to resonate in the election. And so, by and large, many voters might have actually cast a ballot not even knowing that they were Muslim American.
Well, Kane, I have to say, this is an excellent report. I look forward to watching the entire documentary that you did.
Thank you so much.
Well, our thanks to Ken Farabaugh, VOA's Midwest correspondent. Well, now, turning to a growing crisis in West Africa, the United Nations says tens of thousands of people are dying of hunger in the area where Boko Haram militants are active. Boko Haram terrorists have killed about 15,000 people and displaced more than 2 million during a 7-year insurgency. Now, a woman in northeast Nigeria has made it her mission to help people displaced and impoverished by the conflict. Reporting from Maiduguri, Chika Odua brings us the story of Hajia Hawa.
Hajia Hawa is passing out vouchers for free food. Hungry boys and girls run to her. Many of them have not eaten a real meal in days. A person who has the voucher can come to Hawa's house to get free food for 6 months. This is not an NGO. It's what Hawa describes simply as doing God's work.
I'm Hajia Hawa. I'm suffering for people who need help.
As more people come, the crowd becomes unruly. Hawa tries to leave, but it's hard to get away. Sometimes tussles break out. Hawa is used to this. Hawa's husband went missing in 2014. She suspects he was killed by Boko Haram militants. The Boko Haram conflict has killed an estimated 20,000 people and driven an estimated 1 million displaced Nigerians into Maiduguri. Wherever Hawa goes, people flock to meet her. She gives out money, food vouchers, clothes. She pays for her acts of kindness by selling plots of her father's land.
Hajia Hawa gave me a sewing machine, and she always gives me food to eat. Nobody else is helping us. Hajia Hawa is our father, mother, everything for us.
Back at home, hundreds of people are waiting. Today, they will eat yam and soup. Street beggars contribute their earnings to this communal effort and look to Hawa as their leader. She says she too is a beggar. Sometimes she goes to her wealthy friends to ask for help. She does not get help from the government. She has a roster of nearly 6,000 people who depend on her.
Even now, if I tell these people to leave me, they cannot leave me. We have been together for a long time. We love each other. No matter how we suffer, we will stay together.
A man blesses Hawa in the Kanuri tradition. We support you 100%, he says. Powerful men have neglected us, and you have come to our aid. Hawa comes home with a new bag of rice, and everyone is happy. Chika Odua for VOA News, Maiduguri.
From west to east now, improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, are now the weapon of choice for the Somali terrorist group Al-Shabaab, targeting both soldiers and civilians. Journalist Jason Patinkin went on patrol outside Mogadishu with African Union soldiers as they struggled to counter the growing IED threat.
African Union soldiers patrol a village outside Mogadishu. They are sweeping for improvised explosive devices, IEDs, planted by Al-Shabaab insurgents. The goal is to find and defuse any bombs before they go off. The AU troops, called AMISOM, forced Al-Shabaab from most major towns during the past 5 years, but the rebels have regrouped. Using IEDs in ever larger attacks, they have managed to slow AMISOM's advance.
IEDs are the biggest threat in these counter-insurgency, counter-terrorism operations. Al-Shabaab has been able to leverage its expertise on IEDs to very, very devastating effect.
Civilians are targeted too. Blasts at these hotels in late August killed 22. 2016 is set to be the worst year yet for IED attacks in Somalia, with more than 225, according to the Sahan Research Group. The bombs are getting bigger too, up to 80 kilograms compared to 5 or 10 kilograms just a few years ago.
The use of IEDs has really evolved. IEDs are in different types. Trucks that are filled with explosives. They are pressure plate IEDs. There are also magnetic IEDs, IEDs that are remote control. And so a combination of these really creates a lot of challenge.
IEDs are effective because they are easy to make. Cell phones trigger explosives made from fertilizer and old munitions. Ball bearings and nails maximize carnage. The only imports are blast caps and detonators smuggled from Yemen, according to AMISOM commanders and independent researchers.
They can place on a road, on the side of a road, and a vehicle. They are easily modified. They can easily be transported. They are easily connected. And the triggerman can easily hide. And that's why the IEDs they manufacture gives them a lot of flexibility.
AMISOM officials and independent observers say patrols and searches aren't enough in places like Mogadishu, where attacks are most frequent. Better intelligence is needed to break up the bomb-making groups.
Keeping an eye on where potential IED factories may be, keeping an eye on where the materials are coming from. You know, if certain materials which are known IED components are visible in high quantities or running through the hands of certain people, that kind of intelligence can start to dismantle an IED network.
For AMISOM soldiers on the front lines, reducing the IED threat cannot come soon enough. Jason Patinkin for VOA News, Mogadishu.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, a look at the oil market and the hot economic sectors on the continent. Stay with us.
This is Green Beat for a healthier planet.
Picnics are as French as the impressionists who paint the scenes of déjeuner or lunch on the grass. So how do the French feel about a new ban on picnic utensils made of plastic? Paris resident Johan Dumont thinks it's a good idea.
With all the debate in our society today about the environment, I think it is a good decision to remove these plates and cups because it is simply a waste.
The new measure to ban plastic utensils and cups comes just a couple of months after France banned plastic bags across the country. Julian Bayou is with the group Europe Ecology.
C'est-à-dire que ce plastique, ces microplastiques,
This plastic, this microplastic, this destroys our health and destroys our oceans.
Companies that make plastic picnic supplies and coffee cups have until 2020 to comply with the measure to make all disposable dishware out of compostable material. I'm Rebecca Ward for VOA's Green Beat.
Well, in the battle for the Iraqi city of Mosul, more than 100 U.S. troops are accompanying Iraqi and Kurdish Peshmerga forces and their push to retake the city from Islamic State forces. A Pentagon spokesman says U.S. soldiers are assisting about 10,000 Kurds, 18,000 Iraqi security forces, and another couple thousand Iraqi police as they face an Islamic State force that has settled in the second largest Iraqi city for more than 2 years. Now, the long-awaited offensive, backed by airstrike from a U.S.-led coalition and involving Sunni tribal forces and Shia militias, remains on the outskirts of Mosul. President Barack Obama expressed confidence in the fight to liberate Mosul while warning of the difficulties ahead.
2 years, perhaps 1 million civilians are still living there. And so in addition to rooting out ISIL, our focus jointly is on the safety and the humanitarian aid for civilians who are escaping the fight. That's going to be a top priority for both our governments.
Now, the offensive on Mosul has prompted international aid agencies to issue warnings of a likely humanitarian crisis. Well, in today's business report, crude oil is trading back over $50 per barrel as more nations are willing to join OPEC in cutting production. How will that impact oil exporting nations like Nigeria, and is there relief in sight? For more on the oil market and hot sectors in the African economy, Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino joins us live from New York. Hi, Jill.
Hello, Vincent. So oil has moved back over the key $50 level following comments today in London by Saudi Arabia's Minister of Energy and Industry. The minister said that other nations are willing to join OPEC in cutting production to secure improvement in oil prices, but he didn't specify which countries. So far, only Russia has made that commitment, but this rebound in oil is solely due to OPEC and has nothing to do with a persistent downtrend in supply. You have to remember, as oil prices creep higher, producers ramp up production in an effort to generate revenue, which means more supply floods into an already stressed system, and that will depress prices. While the commodities complex can be complex, it always comes back to the basic fundamentals of supply and demand.
Now let's switch gears and talk about the retail sector, an area in African economy that has seen an increase in demands as the middle class continues to grow.
You're exactly right. The economy in many African countries is growing more rapidly than most developed countries. Just take a look at the strength and investment going on in the mobile banking and telecom sectors. More Africans have money to spend, and this is where the mass market exists, which is the case in every region around the world. In the U.S., nearly 70% of the GDP is derived from consumer spending. Now, the retail sector has two major realms in Africa, the formal market and the informal market. Billions of dollars are being spent to construct malls, hypermarkets, and supermarkets on the continent. Consumers are definitely running to them, yet the informal open-air retail market is still significant, and that accounts for the majority of consumer spend, somewhere around 90%.
You did mention investment in areas of technology. Do you think e-commerce will be widely adopted in Africa?
Absolutely, and the trends are quite exciting, according to a 40-page study by Deloitte calling African Powers of Retailing 2015. Internet retailing, or e-commerce, whether it's desktop or mobile, is emerging as one of the most dynamic channels within Africa's retailing market. This is what's also known as omni-channel strategy adoption. It's become a focus for many retailers given the proliferation of mobile phones, shortage of retail space, and just like we value in the U.S., convenience is an increasing commodity in Africa as well.
Jill, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino reporting live from New York. Now it's time for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Top female YouTubers from the Arab world launch Batala, a social media platform. We'll be right back.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Heidi Adams-Fitzpatrick. Let's take a look at what's trending. It's not your everyday matchmaking service because Michael Ugochukwu's business focuses on people living with HIV. He started the dating service in 2012 because he wanted to help those he describes as Nigeria's rejects. He'd become disillusioned with the widespread stigma towards people living with HIV. Ugochukwu says he has about 7,000 clients on the books, ranging from ages 19 to 72. 6 in 7 of them are women. Well, to the Middle East now. Top female YouTubers from the Arab world were celebrated at a special event in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to launch the social media platform's new hub, Batala, which is Arabic for heroine. Female hero. The hub features more than 100 female content creators from across the Middle East and North Africa and has over 1,000 videos covering a wide range of genres. At the launch event, influential female YouTube creators led discussions on just about everything from how to start your own business to dealing with online harassment. In the Middle East and North Africa, time spent watching female-related videos on YouTube grew by 50% last year. And finally, what does American music icon Bob Dylan think about winning the Nobel Prize? Well, don't ask the Swedish Academy, they can't seem to find him. And Dylan has yet to make a public statement about the honor, despite having performed since the announcement. The permanent secretary of the Academy admits she doesn't know whether he even plans to attend the award ceremony in Stockholm on December 10th. Dylan's controversial win marks the first time the award has gone to a musician. Here's an idea, put up a reward. And that is what's trending today. Vincent?
Haiti, thank you very much. And that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. And from all of us in Washington, have a good night.
With the U.S. presidential campaign in its final weeks, the last of 3 debates between the main candidates for U.S. president is October 20th at 0100 UTC. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have different views of the world. VOA will present their final debate live in your language. Then, hear reaction from immigrant voters in the U.S. in a VOA special, The World is Watching.
They went out there to try and get the...
Really upset me and upset my family.
You can also take part online at voanews.com/debates and on Twitter at #VOA Debates. Watch the final debate and then weigh in, beginning at 0100 UTC October 20th, here on VOA.